Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sport Network. We have a great show for you today. We will be covering the Manchester City versus Tottenham match today. With 1 month left till the Euros, we will discuss the biggest storylines. We'll discuss Postecoglou's comments after Tottenham's loss to Manchester City, which was very interesting. Talk about Real Madrid, the form that they're in, defeating Alaves 5-1 as we look ahead to the Champions League final. And make sure you stick around for later in the show. We'll be giving you my thoughts on some of the top headlines in the world of soccer going on entering this final weeks left of the season and in the summer of international soccer. Also, we get a number of questions from viewers that come in during the show. So to ensure that your questions get read on air, I ask that you use the tips and donations link at gsmcpodcast.net with your questions. This puts your questions at the top of the list so that I can see it. And it really helps to grow the show. So please enter your questions. And again, the link is gsmcpodcast.net. Manchester City versus Tottenham Hotspur. A game of a lot of headlines entering it, discussing potentially Tottenham helping out their arch rivals in Arsenal. Manchester City having to win this game to win the Premier League, because essentially this is a game, if they dropped points in, if they lost, they make it so difficult for themselves entering the last week. And if they drew, then they would rely on goal differential, which is heavy towards Arsenal entering this game. But winning this game 2-0, puts them back on top of the Premier League with 88 points, 2 points ahead of Arsenal. 2 goals ahead of 2 points ahead of Arsenal, and now they control their own destiny in the final week. They beat Aston Villa at the Etihad. They are the Premier League champions, and that's thanks to today's game. In a game that I thought in the first half was a little bit of little shaky for Manchester City. You saw a little nerves for Manchester City, not wanting to mess this up. A few passes that went astray, a few bad moments lost in possession in bad areas, not really looking fluid throughout the entire team. Tottenham, both teams playing ridiculously high lines like they did, especially in that first half. You saw in the first half, Tottenham really played very, very compact, and they allowed City to spring it out wide to Kyle Walker. I feel like Tottenham went entering this game thinking, or their philosophy was, we make it compact, we get rid of any passing lane he may have, and we allow Kyle Walker to be on the ball, because he is, when you could look at this Manchester City team, he is one of the weaker guys on the ball, especially in that position, putting in a cross and all that. He really struggled. He played in a few bad balls early in the game. Then he had another one where he rifled it in. I thought that was one of his better balls. But they allowed the width to be, for there to be space on the width for Manchester City. And Manchester City did a good job moving the ball from one end of the pitch to another, opening up that Tottenham defense. They just couldn't get that breakthrough. And Tottenham, they also had a few of their opportunities. Bentancur had one on the counter after Højbjerg played a delicious diagonal ball into, I believe it was Brennan Johnson. And then Brennan Johnson hit Bentancur, who Ederson was saved. And, this game, there was a lot of goalkeepers that made some important saves. And it was shaky, ending the first half. The second half starts, and City were able to find their breakthrough with the City-esque goal. Erling Haaland, with his biggest goal of the season up to this point, scored the goal that happened after De Bruyne hits him on a low cross from close range, and then Haaland taps it into an empty net. And then it seemed like, okay, Manchester City, that was the sense of relief, the sign of relief. And, we just thought everything would be smooth sailing from there. But Tottenham did have their opportunities. Tottenham had opportunities, and Ederson had to come off of an injury due to like a nasty head injury. He was very, very frustrated and agitated as he was walking off. Seemed like the training staff is the one that wanted him off. It was potential head injury, whether it was the fact that it was a potential head injury and they're just looking at it from a safety point of view, or they think Ortega coming in gives us a better chance than Ederson, who does seem hobbled. But Ortega came in and he made a miraculous, important, game-changing saves. And there was an opportunity with a couple with Kulusevski running in between the Manchester City defenders, and Ortega being able to save it with his leg. And then there was a one-on-one opportunity Son had after a mistake. I believe it was from Akanji, and Son went in, and Ortega came up with the save one-on-one. And, again, Pep Guardiola said this after the game. If we do become Premier League champions, it is because of Stefan Ortega. Or he said something of that sort. He said Stefan Ortega saved the Premier League for us. And you know what? You could argue that, because those were two massive saves that he had to make. And it was so unlike Man City that they would even concede those kind of opportunities. But at the end of the day, Man City always finds a way to get it out in these fine margins in the Premier League when they need the games down the stretch. When you look at it, when they looked down and out, going up against Leicester City, the second to final match day, Vincent Kompany is the one that, drilled it out of nowhere to give them the lead in the game, and that ended up helping them, or that ended up winning the Premier League title essentially. And they needed that sort of moment in this game, but not from Vincent Kompany. It came from Stefan Ortega, because those saves were massive. If Son is able to get that one-on-one to go through, we are looking at a whole different landscape entering the final match day of the Premier League. It's heartbreaking for Arsenal fans when you see that. Maybe it adds a little bit of an element to them not hating Spurs even more than they currently do, which I don't know if it's possible. The atmosphere, in my opinion, was not the greatest of atmospheres. We'll cover more on that in the later segments when we talk about Postecoglou's comments. But it didn't really seem like Tottenham fans were really that much into the game. And it was a little bit of not a dead atmosphere, but, not the greatest of atmospheres. We saw Postecoglou, discussing with one of the Spurs fans, telling him, which side are you on? Again, we'll reach this point later on. We'll talk about that. I don't want to touch too much on it right now, but regarding the game, I can't put into words how important of this game was for Manchester City. If you look at it, this was really their last heavy block entering that week, the last week game of the season, because West Ham at Etihad, they fully expect to win that game and to win it quite comfortably. This is Manchester City we're talking about, and this was kind of the last test. But you know what, Tottenham, they did put up a fight. Tottenham, like the previous games, when you looked at the games against that they've lost in this bad streak that they're in currently. There's some games where they were just out of it. This game was not like that. They played pretty well. They generated chances. They defended well at times, but they just couldn't get over the line. When you look at the stats, 10 stats to Tottenham, 8 shots to City, 5 shots on target to Tottenham, 5 shots on City. They outpossessed Manchester City, which maybe was remarkable when I think about that. 54% possession to 46% for Manchester City. They played a very good game, and they played a disciplined game, and the game that maybe they should have got more out of. but they couldn't get that ball into the back of the net while Erling Haaland was able to. And then, but after that breakthrough goal on the counter, Phil Foden plays a sublime, it's an absolutely beautiful ball played into Jeremy Doku. Jeremy Doku, in a one-on-one situation, is a nightmare situation to be in. And Radu Draguzin, I'm trying to pronounce his name correctly, gets his back turned in a split-second moment, and as he turns around, he reaches in with his foot, catches Doku, and then Erling Haaland drills it in, gives no chance for Vicario. 2-0 Manchester City, and you could tell by the adrenaline, the way that they were celebrating, the way that they were screaming. Those Manchester City players felt their fingertips on that title after that goal. They felt their fingertips on that trophy, and you could tell by the celebrations, not just from them, but also from Guardiola after the goal. You saw Guardiola, whenever Akanji made the mistake, falling on the ground, but then seeing that it was saved and standing back up. It actually reminded me last year when they went away to Liverpool at Anfield earlier in the season. A struggling Liverpool team, João Cancelo, I believe it was João Cancelo, ended up making a mistake at about the halfway point. Salah was able to get on the end of it, and Salah went through one-on-one and put it away. And that exact same reaction happened from Pep Guardiola, where he fell to the ground, but he couldn't stand back up in relief. And in that situation, it ended up being a goal, and Liverpool ended up winning that game. In a situation where they needed that to happen for them to win the Premier League, Ortega makes the stop. Manchester City get by the same way Manchester City always gets by, as they are one of the best teams in Premier League history. We're going to take a short break here. After the break, we'll talk about 1 month coming to the Euros, and we discuss the biggest storylines of it.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
Before the break, we discussed Manchester City versus Tottenham, but now we have to discuss 1 month left till Euro 2024. We need to correct that real quick. 1 month left till Euro 2024. 1 month left till Euro 2024. A lot of storylines in this campaign, a lot of big teams playing, a lot of groups, a lot of stars, and it's very, very exciting. You see some squads getting linked, like Germany. Some players are getting leaked day in, day out. I don't really know how players get linked in a squad. That's ridiculous to me, but that's for Germany to handle that for their own. But no, there are some big teams with some big expectations at these Euros. The Germany national team, who always have been a proper footballing nation, they're in a very bad run of form when it comes to recent international trophies, tournaments. The last 2 World Cups, they've been eliminated in the group stages. The last Euros, they got eliminated in the round of 16. Unacceptable for the culture, the footballing culture and tradition that this Germany national team has represented in the international footballing world. They want to get back to where they want to be. with the home Euros, it's perfect opportunity for them. Julian Nagelsmann trying to revitalize this German national team, try to revamp this group. I would say when it comes to talent, this Germany team is loaded with talent all across the pitch. Look like Gnabry might be out for these Euros, but you can still go to Leroy Sané, Florian Wirtz, Thomas Muller, who still probably has a role to play with this team. Nicholas Füllkrug, who's in the Champions League final with Dortmund. This team has attacking talent. You cannot deny that. Kai Havertz, Jamal Musiala. Then you got a midfield with guys like Gundogan, Kimmich, Toni Kroos coming back into the fold. Defensively, Rudiger, Jonathan Tah, Schlotterbeck. And then goalkeeping wise, they have Ter Stegen and both Manuel Neuer. This is a strong national team that's really been struggling, even not just the World Cup, but after that last World Cup, friendly wise, with the last international window has probably been one of their best international windows in many years now, beating the likes of France and the Netherlands. And they did those both on the road while they played this game Euros at home. Actually, no, they played Netherlands in Germany, but still they beat two quality teams, and that's kind of brought the fans a little bit more confidence. They're thinking, oh, Nagelsmann, maybe he is turning it around, but the form has been poor before that. Losing to Austria, losing to Turkey, drawing to Mexico, losing to Japan, losing to Colombia. Just not good enough. Just not good enough. Losing to Poland, drawing to Ukraine, losing to Belgium. It's not good enough for the German national team. So, they're gonna ride on the fact that they've been pretty good recently into a way to kind of get the fans back, increase the confidence and the morale of this team, and we'll see what they're able to do. Look at other teams with the storylines when it comes to the Spanish national team. They've had a lot of bad press when it comes to what happened at the Women's World Cup regarding the Spanish Federation president at that time. Now he has since then resigned and is up for court charges and court trials for an occurrence that happened at the Spanish World Cup, an inappropriate occurrence that he is paying for. And I'm not going to get into that because that's a whole topic for another day, but there has been a lot of controversy and a lot of negative press around this federation. So I think the Spanish national team that's newly led by a Luis de la Fuente, who had a bad start to qualifiers, losing to Scotland at Hampden Park, has slowly eased his way into the job, has gotten the Spanish national team back to where it belongs, winning games. They didn't lose another game in that qualifiers, I believe. And they play good football. They have good, talented players. They play the Spain way, tiki-taka philosophy, not being afraid. This is a Luis de la Fuente that's worked with a lot of these guys, as he has been a youth manager in the Spanish systems, actually led the Spanish national team at the Olympics in 2021. So he is familiar with these players. He's had he didn't just have the last 2 years with the players, but he's also seen these players went up the youth ranks. So he's familiar with them. And the players are familiar with him. They play good football under him. So they want to kind of, bring the attention back to just the football rather than the controversy regarding the Spanish Federation. You got a Italian team that's on a completely reboot, bringing in Luciano Spalletti, a manager that did a remarkable thing in Napoli, and he was kind of trying to want to replicate that kind of magic for this Italian national team. Squad-wise, they do lack the talent up top. They do lack the goals. They don't have a striker. They have inconsistent guys up there like a Scamacca, and then they have Rategi, who's not really, he has potential, but there's no real solution up there. They have a Chiesa who has not really been informed since Euros, and he's really their star man, but he hasn't been as good as he was that last Euros, which he wasn't phenomenal in. Midfield, they have Barella, a quality player. They could have the likes of Tonali, but he is suspended because of betting. That's a huge loss for them. Defensively, they're still pretty solid, but Italian national team, they've always been solid defensively. And then goalkeeper, obviously, they have a strong goalkeeper with Donnarumma, and they also have Vicario if they want to go into that direction. I wouldn't go there just yet, but they have options. So I just think the talent here is not good enough, but I think the addition of Luciano Spalletti could help. Maybe they can get goals by playing a counter-pressing, high system, good at football. I really love the hire of Luciano Spalletti, and I'm interested to see what this Italian too, despite the lack of talent. You got the England men's national team. I mean, come on, it's coming home, isn't it? Well, let me break it to you. No, it's not. Gareth Southgate this is his last international tournament, barring he wins it. Maybe that's enough for him to stove off the pressure of this job. But this is probably his last chance. This is an England team that's rising up the ranks. It's an England national team that has quality all over the pitch, has one of the better teams at this Euros, probably has the second most talented team at the Euros. But they have a manager who has not proven that he can make a team better than the sum of their parts. He has won every game that he should have won, and he's lost every game that they should lose. And at the end of the day, a top manager is able to make his team better than what they are, and he's not a top manager. He's someone that can just eases the ship and says all the right things, and he ain't some tactical mastermind that's gonna out-coach another team. He's not gonna lose you the game, but he's not gonna win you the game. And when you want to win these kind of international trophies, you want a manager that can outclass other managers. There's never been a manager that's won the Euros or World Cup that hasn't been an elite manager, that hasn't been a flat-out elite manager. Lionel Scaloni, elite manager. Didier Deschamps, elite manager. Roberto Mancini, he is elite manager. You don't have that here with when it comes to Gareth Southgate. And then also there is a case of the players just being overrated by the English media, who love to overrate their own. I think that's also something that should be understood. But I'm interested. We're all interested to see who takes them out in this Euros. And then you got a France national team that's just the best. They've always been the best. But they're coming in, they've come in and they've played, on sort of relatively questionable form. They lost to Germany. They really struggled against Chile. Qualifiers-wise, they were comfortable. They were easily the best player. But the team, they were undefeated in qualifiers. But apart from that, not apart from that, that's 8 games. But when it comes to the last couple friendlies, they have struggled a bit. They leaked some goals in against Chile. They lost to Germany at home. So it's interested to see with them. Mbappe not coming off as his best season. Can he right us wrong of this season not reaching the Champions League final at the Euros? This is a France national team that hasn't won a Euros under Deschamps. So I think they'll be very up for it. Very up for that. We're running out, but tomorrow we will discuss some of the other bigger storylines at this Euros. We're going to take a short break, but when we come back, I'm going to discuss Postecoglou's comments after Tottenham lost to Manchester City.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Postecoglou's comments after Tottenham lost to Manchester City. Okay, there is a lot to potentially address with this this statement that he came out with. He's obviously frustrated in the energy that was present at the stadium, some of the questions being asked towards him, some of the rumors going around, some of the thoughts of the fans, all that. He is obviously frustrated with everything that's going on. But first of all, I'd like to quote exactly what he said. The foundations are really fragile. The last 48 hours has shown me that. It's inside the club, outside the club, outside, inside, everywhere. It's been an interesting exercise. It's just my observations, mate. Okay. Wow, that's a heavy thing to say. This is not the first manager that hasn't been afraid to call out the culture or just anything in general when it comes to the culture, the heritage of Tottenham. Antoine Conte, in one of his final pressers before he was sacked last year, had some sort of similar connotations he was trying to make. He made it in more of a harsher manner. You had Jose Mourinho, who let's be honest, for being 100%, this did come after he got sacked, way after actually. But he discussed the culture at Tottenham being different than other clubs. Especially when it comes to the fact that he was sacked right before a cup final. He talked about how that kind of shows the mentality of the club and all that. So Postecoglou has not been the first to make these sort of connotations. And let's explain really why at the first half. Number one, it was flat. The atmosphere was flat. Tottenham Hotspur happens to have a ridiculously amazing stadium. The atmosphere is great. They're always, especially when they're going up against a team like Manchester City. Whenever talking about the atmosphere being flat, Postecoglou was asked whether this influenced his players, and he said, of course it does. It is what it is. I can't dictate what people do. They're allowed to express themselves any way they want. But yeah, when we've got late winners in games, it's because the crowds helped us. There was also an incident where Postecoglou was recorded on video while he was arguing and a Spurs fan in the stadium, while some of the supporters filmed him doing City's Poznan celebration after the opening goal. Postecoglou replied, whenever he was asked about the Spurs fans' chants, Postecoglou replied in a spiky way, "I'm not interested, mate. I just don't care. Maybe I'm out of step, but I don't care. I just want to win. I want to be successful at this football club. It's why I was brought in. So what other people, how they want to feel and what their priorities are of zero interest to me. I know what's important to building a winning team. That's what I need to concentrate on." And there was And there was I was speaking earlier about the video. He was going a little bit at a Spurs fan that was kind of on a different side of what Postecoglou assumed the fan was like. He was more worried about Arsenal winning the league, which I don't blame. Postecoglou didn't have any of it and kind of went out to go at him in that video that was captured by the fans. So, look, I don't blame the Tottenham's lack of atmosphere in this game. And if I was a fan of Tottenham, knowing the hatred that they have for Arsenal, I would also be in a I wouldn't even be in a perplexed, confused position. I would want Manchester City to pull this one out. Postecoglou, him being a German Australian, maybe he doesn't understand what it's like being a Tottenham fan in the street of London, walking in the streets, knowing, seeing Arsenal fans in a corner after they won a league title, not understanding that kind of humiliation, that kind of resentment. He doesn't really understand that. So I feel for the Tottenham fans. I think it was a little bit harsh if he's talking about the Tottenham fans in that perspective. It's a huge rivalry. I mean, they hate each other to the bones. So I understand why they had some confusion on what they wanted to do, and and I understand Postecoglou's point of view, talking about I have priorities and I know what a winning time I'm. And look, getting into the top four is important for Tottenham. Getting the Champions League, getting that revenue, being able to perform in that sort of elite competition, that is important to them, and that shouldn't be underestimated. And with this draw, it eliminates them from that possibilities. But them losing the game to seeing Arsenal win a Premier League title, that'll also be just absolutely devastating for them. So I see both perspectives. And this is a Tottenham team that is pretty, that doesn't have the best of culture when it comes to winning. I mean, we've seen it in years past. They are called the Ballers. The amount of years that they have now won a trophy. Chiellini coming out in a press conference afterwards whenever they beat Tottenham in the Champions League. I believe it was the quarterfinals or the round of 16s a few years ago. And he came out in his conference saying, "It is the history of the Tottenham." And, there's been a lot of people that have questioned the culture at Tottenham Football Club. And for me, it has to start off with the top. It has to start off at the top because, it trickles down. Daniel Levy, people have a different kind of opinions on him. He doesn't get messed around at the transfer window. He's a tough negotiator. He's this, he's that. He also is a part of an organization that hasn't spent the adequate money for Tottenham to compete with the likes of the teams that they're expected to compete with, especially their arch rivals. He's had some questionable moments in choosing coaches. He had that 1 year where they went after everybody and they couldn't get nobody, and they ended up with Nuno Espirito Santos just to sack him shortly through the season. And for me, this mentality, this culture really starts up at the top for me. And it's something they have to change. It's something Andre Postecoglou wants to change. And I think he's had a pretty good season. I think he's had a very good season. He's got this Tottenham team playing much better football than they've played in a very long time. Since Pochettino, they do leak goals just because of the way that they play. The team did get a little bit tired near the end of the season. But this is a squad now with much depth, now with much quality. When you look at the other teams, what Postecoglou done in a short amount of time, I think has been pretty impressive. They did not reach the Champions League, but they're still in Europe, which is a positive for them. And I think, they have every opportunity to continue to get better. It's just whether or not, and this culture to change, and it's just whether or not Tottenham is willing to spend money on players and bring in quality players for him to work with. That's really what it really comes down to for Tottenham if they want to take that next level into really competing for these titles, which it just seems kind of impossible just knowing the history of the Tottenham, as Chiellini said. But I think it was very damning quotes by Postecoglou. I think it's comments that I don't know if he's having I don't know if there's a strategic aspect to coming out and saying this, whether or not he's trying to put pressure on the organization to start spending, the fans to understand what the priorities are. I don't know if that's his case, or this is just strictly a quote came out of the frustration after everything that he's been hearing the 48 hours, the lack of atmosphere in the stadium. Maybe it's just purely out of frustration and something he wouldn't have said if he waited on it, if he didn't have to do a press conference right away. I don't know. I like to think he had a more measured approach in what he's trying to say rather than just coming out with pure anger. If that is the case, I understand that two humans are humans, but it's really hard, really harsh quotes. But I do defend the fans to an extent, and but I understand where Postecoglou is coming from in the comments that he made. We're gonna take a short break, but when we come back, we will discuss Real Madrid. They defeated Alaves 5-0, and we look ahead to the Champions League final.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Real Madrid, they defeated Alaves 5-0, and they did it in supreme fashion. They moved on and did the trophy celebration with their fans. As this is the first home game since they clinched La Liga, Jude Bellingham was able to add to his goal tally. Vinicius Jr. scored 2, Valverde scored, and Arda Güler, the young Turkish man, came off the bench to score for Real Madrid as they routed 5-0. This is the second straight game. Carlo Ancelotti has started Thibaut Courtois, second clean sheet that he's had, and 2 dominating wins for Real Madrid these past 2 weeks. I didn't watch the game. I was too busy watching some of the other more important games going on as the La Liga race is over. But they finished with 22 shots to 18 shots for Alaves, 11 shots on target to 10. Dominated possession, 72% possession to 28% for Alaves. And they got the win in domination fashion. But the main thing is, as we look ahead into the Champions League final, Courtois, 2 games, 2 clean sheets. Does this open up a potential opportunity for him entering that Champions League final to play? They got a few more La Liga games, which Carlo Ancelotti has came out and said is preparation for the Champions League final. Courtois came out and said after the game, I feel very good. I understand there are people who may doubt. I know that I was going to come back strong or even better. The team had a few days off, but I'm going to continue to train He's very concentrated on wanting to make that return for the Champions League final. He wants to help his team win the Champions League. He wants to have another sort of monster performance in a Champions League final. And you know, Carlo Ancelotti has a decision that he wants to make, that he needs to make for Real Madrid, because it is a tough decision. Ancelotti believes the Real Madrid team is entering the best form, getting ready for the Champions League final. He's already thinking about the Champions League final against Dortmund, and which I don't blame him for, because they've already clinched La Liga. This is their 37th La Liga title, and they reached the Champions League final a few weeks ago after beating Bayern, and they are really in top form. He came out and said, Carlo Ancelotti, these games are important to maintain the rhythm, the good dynamics, the motivation, and the good play. There are 2 weeks left. Now we'll rest for a few days, and next week we'll do some physical work. In the second week we will do tactical work. That's what he said in the news conference. Real Madrid does have 2 remaining games in La Liga against Villarreal on May 19th. Then the following week on May 25th against Real Betis. He came out and said, he also said, Ancelotti, for me as a coach, it's the best season. The team has been fantastic. We deservedly won La Liga. We're on a cloud, but we have to keep going because we haven't played the most important game yet, which is the Champions League final. They're unbeaten in all competitions since January. They have 93 points in 36 games in La Liga, and Carlos Ancelotti said this team has a lot of talent, very young with a lot of quality. It has the opportunities to mark an era in the future given the value of the youngsters we have. He also spoke about Toni Kroos potentially winning a Ballon d'Or. He said, I want to see Kroos winning a Ballon d'Or. Well, I think that's going to happen. No, but I think it is possible if he can win the Champions League, and the Euros is something that I think is very much within his abilities, and I think that's what he went on saying, and he just really had full of praise for Toni Kroos, who's been absolutely marvelous this season, and he has came back and been, a difference maker to Germany within the first couple of friendlies that we've seen. Regarding them getting ready for Borussia Dortmund, I think the most important team is just not a most important factor in this is not underestimating them. Not underestimating Real Madrid Borussia Dortmund is important, which I don't think this Real Madrid team will. I don't think there will be any sort of disrespect, because this is a Real Madrid team that really does not allow things like that to happen in these moments, especially in the Champions League final. I can't imagine Real Madrid losing the Champions League final. I can't imagine that at all. I'm trying to think, when is the last time they lost the Champions League final? They've won 14 of those 14 finals, but I don't know. They beat Liverpool. Let's look back. They beat Liverpool twice in the final. They beat Atletico in penalties. They beat Atletico in extra time. That was the closest that they came to loss, being down 1-0 in the final game. In recent history, they've never lost the Champions League final. You're gonna have to go back down to sort of ancient times for us to see. I don't see a loss. I'm not going farther down than 1970s. I'm just gonna leave it at that. But in recent times, they've never been a loser of a Champions League final. In these one-legged games, they always find a way. And this team is kind of a good example of that, in the fact that this is a team that always is in it no matter what. No matter being dominated, they'll always be in it at the end, and they'll always find the right opportunities to capitalize on, be clinical, send the game into extra time, or win it at the last minute, and I'm doing a miraculous comeback. And for me, I think even if Borussia Dortmund is able to get some possession and able to, generate a few chances, I think the clinicalness of Real Madrid with the few opportunities they might have would just be too much. In Borussia Dortmund, I don't know if they can be as clinical enough when it comes to the likes of Adeyemi, Füllkrug, Sancho, compared to the likes of Vinicius and Rodrigo, who seem to bury every little opportunity that they have. But there is controversy regarding the goalkeeper position, which way Ancelotti should go. I've said myself, see what he's like in La Liga and determine it based on there. But it is a tough decision to make, despite the fact that he has made 2 clean sheets. Because Lunin brought you here. Lunin has been very, very solid. And, Courtois is not really getting tested in these La Liga games like he will against an opposition like Borussia Dortmund. It is a totally different game. When you look at Borussia Dortmund, they're not entering on nearly as good of a form as Real Madrid. Borussia Dortmund just got thumped 3-0. Just got thumped 3-0 by Mainz. And they were really, they've been really struggling all year in the Bundesliga. They're 5th right now. They're using these last few games in the Bundesliga also as preparation for the Champions League final, as 5th place is nowadays is enough in Bundesliga to reach the Champions League. So they're really preparing for that final as well. But for me, the concentration, the levels is there for Real Madrid, and I think they're in the best form, and I think they're well on their way to a 15th Champions League title, and it'll cement them. I mean, no, they're already cemented, but just continue their legacy of greatness at that football club. We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to discuss some of the top headlines in the world of soccer. Before the break, we discussed Real Madrid defeating Alaves, and we looked ahead to the Champions League final. Now we're going to just look at the top headlines. In the world of soccer, there has been a few interesting occurrences. There has been some results that's gone around, and we're going to discuss all of those. First of all, Aston Villa, they secured their Champions League spot after Spurs lost that game. They're officially in the Champions League in the first time in the history of the Champions League. They did play European competition way back, but at that point it was called something else. And it's remarkable for them. The last time they played in the Champions League, it was called the European Cup in the 82-83 season. And, Unai Emery, what a ridiculously amazing manager. what he accomplished at Sevilla, what he then went on to do at Villarreal. He wasn't able to replicate that kind of success at Arsenal. He did take them to Europa League final, but there was a lot of questions with that Arsenal team. But what he's done with Villarreal, winning the Europa League, taking them to the semi-finals, what he did with Sevilla with all the Europa Leagues that he's won, and now here at Aston Villa, taking this team into the Champions League in the Premier League. He is really, really a phenomenal head coach who deserves an opportunity at another elite club. That's the caliber of manager he is. The transformation that he's done since he replaced Steven Gerrard, they were in relegation danger when he came in, and he took that team into 7th. And now this season, what he's done and taking this team to the Champions League is really a remarkable achievement, and really deserves to be praised, and really should elevate him in the ranks of elite managers, and should give him the right to have another opportunity at a top elite managerial position, with one of the topper clubs in the league. Obviously, we're not talking about next year, because I fully expect him wanting to return to Aston Villa to play in the Champions League, to continue to build the team that he's created. But for me, remarkable achievement by not just Aston Villa, but by Unai Emery. Ten Hag has hit back at Wayne Rooney for what happened during one of Wayne Rooney came out in one of his on the network that he works for, discussing the injuries regarding United. Essentially, he was trying to say that some of the players were available, and they're just they're kind of faking the injuries. And he responded by saying they're committed, and he says and he said he wanted to defend his team when he was speaking at a press conference on Tuesday ahead of the game against Newcastle. He insisted that they will always make themselves available for selection, provided they are fit. You have to be here in Carrington. The players are desperate to play. This is quoted by him. He also said Bruno did a fitness test on Sunday to play, and Rashford did everything he could do. Players are desperate to play. Lindelof and Varane are trying to make themselves available for the final. They do what they can do. And he's really defended his team from those comments. And so that was an important thing to talk about. Olivier Giroud, he's going to join LAFC on a free transfer after the Euros. He's had a remarkable career in Europe, at AC Milan, at Chelsea, winning the Champions League with Chelsea, and then at Arsenal, being the elite striker, number 9 that he was, with France, winning a World Cup, and being an important part of that team despite not scoring a goal. As a striker, shows the value that he provided to the team. And he's a very important part. He'll be a very important part of this France team at this Euros too this summer. He's going to be joining LAFC on a free transfer after the Euros, which, basically puts a wrap to his international career after this summer, whatever international career that he's had. And what a player that he has been. So hats off to him to making that move to joining Europe. Christian Pulisic, he's been a very, very good this season, and he's been a bright spot for AC Milan, despite AC Milan having a rather difficult season. There's been a lot of rumors regarding Stefan Pioli, who in my opinion is a good manager. They did finish second in Serie A, but the season rather has been frustrating. Champions League, frustrating. And and Stefano Pioli, him possibly being gone from the club, the Pellegatti saying there's some sort of economic issue of Pioli exit. There's a lot that's been a mess. But the most important thing in this is Christian Pulisic. He's been very, very good this season. He's had a very, very good performances. He's been one of the more important guys on this team. He's really solidified himself, and he is an important player for the U.S. men's national team at this World Cup. At the Copa America, if they're trying to make a run, Christian Pulisic has to be one of the best players, not just on his team, but in the tournament. He has to be dominant. He has to carry this team. He has to be the talisman, which he is capable of being. He shows up in the brightest moments. He was amazing in the World Cup. He was phenomenal in the World Cup. And I fully expect him to perform at this Copa America. It was a good move for him. Going to AC Milan, a change of scenery was perfect. And I fully expect Christian Pulisic to take this U.S. men's national team to the next level at Copa America. Whether that will be enough or not, I don't know, because I'm not the biggest fan of Greg Berhalter. I've made that clear for a very, very long time. But I still think he is quality and class. Todd Bowley, he said, he's been an interesting character. He had the quote, and there's been a lot of hit back. Oh, no, this is an old article. I apologize for that. Let's move on. Discussing, Erling Haaland too. Erling Haaland scored 2 goals. There's been a lot of talks on Erling Haaland throughout the season. Some people talking negatively about him, saying he doesn't show up in the brightest of games. All this, the top center backs got at the end of him. Roy Keane coming out with his harsh comments, talking about his touchdown. Look, Erling Haaland is one of the best players in the world. He is an amazing, elite striker, a clinical striker, and he's not just some sort of finisher that has no touch, no ability. He is good on the ball. He does have quality. He can run at pace. He's a clinical finisher. He has good control. He can play in tight spaces. Don't underestimate Erling Haaland. He is one of the best players in the world. He will continue to be the best player in the world for a very, very long time. He's going to have a ridiculous amount of goals in his career just because of the dominance that a guy like him provides. It's a shame that he's not playing at the summer, at the Euros. We want to see the best players playing in these kind of international tournaments. And him and Odegaard, they kind of been let down by the supporting cast at Norway. But he is a remarkable player. And I think some of the negative criticism really needs to slow down, because he doesn't deserve the criticism that he gets, at all. In my opinion, he doesn't deserve the criticism he gets at all. So, we're gonna conclude the show here. It's been a very good show. We discussed, the City Tottenham game. The Premier League title race coming down to the wire. We're gonna have a fantastic weekend of soccer, and I'm very excited to see it, unfold. Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. Thank you once again, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.